This is More Than Work, the podcast reminding you that your self-worth is made up of more than your job title. Each week, I'll talk to a guest about how they discovered that for themselves. You'll hear about what they did, what they're doing, and who they are. I'm your host, Rabiah. I work in IT, perform stand-up comedy, write, volunteer, and, of course, podcast. Thank you for listening. Here we go. Hey, welcome back to More Than Work, everyone. So today, my guest is someone I've met on the comedy circuit in London, but I could have met him at his day job too. It's Ravi Holy. He's a vicar, a comedian, and he runs a non-religious therapeutic program for adult survivors of child abuse. So we're going to get into all of the subjects with him today. So thanks for being here, Ravi.
Great to be here. Great to see you again.
Yeah, you too. So where am I talking to you from today?
Why? If you remember that joke of mine, because I live in a village called Wye, which is between Ashford and Canterbury. So it's always really awkward when someone asks me where I live.
Nice. So did you grow up in London or where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Cambridge.
And then what brought you to London?
So I moved to London when I was 18 to join England's only punk fringe theatre company.
Nice.
Which was called Wet Paint Theatre. I was kind of supposed to be the kind of playing the lead role in the play that they were going to do touring Europe. But unfortunately, the company split up before I'd even really done one rehearsal. I think the guy who was running it had some issues and it all went a bit pear-shaped. So I was then sort of in London without any particular reason to be there, but I didn't really want to go back to Cambridge, so I just sort of stayed in London.
Nice. And then you were in a band, right? You post pictures every once in a while of you back in the day.
I wanted to be in a band, probably before I wanted to be in a punk theatre company. But I mean, because I was a kind of drug addict, I'd never really got it together to be in a proper band. And so I actually only finally got into a band after I'd sort of quit drugs and alcohol, been through rehab, and in fact the band were all people I met through rehab, or like one of them was like one of my old mates who had followed me into rehab. But so the point is, we were, when we started out, we were all like recovering drug addicts, and like my first couple of gigs were at conventions of Narcotics Anonymous before we then started playing the job.
Wow. So you were pretty young when you were already like in that, right? And do you mind talking about that at all, or?
Not at all. Okay.
So you were pretty young when you were like started using, right? And just kind of got into that scene of drugs, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, ironically, I was actually a bit of a late starter. So I didn't really start drink. I'd never tasted alcohol until I kind of went to boarding school at 13. And so, I only kind of smoked weed for the first time when I was about 15, shortly before I was kicked out of boarding school. But then I kind of really, after getting kicked out of school and then home, I kind of absolutely just dove into the deep end of. So I was then kind of drinking a lot and taking lots of drugs. I mean, it was really only about a 3-year period before I kind of hit rock bottom and found recovery and indeed God, which was sort of pretty much the same event. Right. In fact, kind of God came first, followed by recovery about 30 seconds later. But yeah, so I was 19 when I got sober, and I'm like 37 years sober now, which is
wow.
Yeah, well, and it's because I was telling someone that the other day, and I kind of thought, I was like, hang on, I can't be 37 years. I must mean 27. It can't be 37 years, but it is.
Yeah. I mean, things. I know I'm having the same. I think we're probably a similar age then, where I'm kind of going, 25 years ago, right. And I go, wait, what? Like, yeah, because I was 19, 26 years ago, right? And I go, how did that happen? Like, how did all that time go by? It's really extraordinary, but good for you. I mean, congrats on, well, you're 30, okay, you're 10 years older. I did the
Yeah,
math there because I
yeah,
was
yeah,
going with your other number. You're 27, your
yeah,
refactored number.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, like that's, I mean, that's extraordinary as far as just doing that and realizing at a young age, thankfully, because uh I mean, in my family, I experienced the loss of my brother to drugs, and
Oh, did
so
you? Oh, wow.
specifically fentanyl. And so it's extraordinary knowing when someone gets through that and works through that, because it's really difficult. And so you did that. You went to rehab and you got clean, and you also found God. I mean, I know all the anonymous kind of programs have that as part of the center, but um, what did that mean for you? Like, were you raised in a religious home at all, or was it brand new to you?
So I mean, I was raised in a very weird home. My mum was Catholic and quite devout. My father was an atheist, having been brought up a Hindu. So I was raised Catholic, but it didn't really take, and or maybe it did. I mean, but certainly I sort of declared myself an atheist at 15. I then, through kind of taking lots of drugs, kind of had various spiritual, supernatural experiences. So I kind of thought, okay, well, I think there is something. I was like not an atheist, but I was also like a long way from believing in any kind of God in the traditional sense, until I kind
Mm-hmm.
of hit this sort of rock bottom where I was like, well, I could probably do. I need some help here, and there's literally no one else I can ask for help, because I was estranged from my parents, didn't have any other family, everyone I knew was a drug addict. So I kind of prayed as a kind of
Mm,
last resort, and you know felt that prayer was answered, because as I at the exact moment I sent up this prayer, so a friend of mine who had joined one of the 12-step fellowships like 9 months before and had a go at selling me on it,
mm,
which I'd ignored, he kind of walked through the door at that exact moment. So for me, that was like, okay, well, that's the prayer.
mm,
The prayer is answered with clear information. What I need to do is go to these meetings and actually do what I'm told. So a lot of people who go
yeah,
to 12 steps really struggle with the kind of spiritual religious angle, because they're kind of going, well, my problem is alcohol. I didn't ask for God to get involved, whereas I was the other way around. I sort of turned up there going, God's told me to come
right.
here, what do I do? So that was fine for me. And then I think
Mm,
over time I sort of found my way back to Christianity, which sort of just made sense to me. I mean, hey, I don't. We're supposed to be talking about lots of stuff.
yeah.
Not, I mean, I'm not here to. I have no desire to be a televangelist, so I'm not trying to convert your people. I'm just telling you my story. That's just what happened. I mean, so the brand of Christianity that I then got involved with was completely crazy, as I kind of talk a bit about in my set. I don't know if I don't know if you've seen my longer set where I go a bit more into that, but I effectively joined a cult, right? And I was in this very kind of crazy, full on
Mhm.
fundamentalist Pentecostal church for several years, which I eventually kind of escaped from, and then sort of found my way into the Church of England, which is obviously a much broader, more liberal, more intellectually rigorous, inclusive kind of community that which is where I kind of naturally belong, I
Mhm.
think. I mean, obviously we have our own conservative fundamentalist wing, and I'm still probably at the kind of extreme
Right.
left of even the Church of England constituency, but I kind of I'm at home here, and
Yeah. So, I mean, and I think it makes sense. I mean, to go kind of dive deep into one place. There are certain parts of Christianity that, or I don't know, sects, I guess, of Christianity that will find the people who need more at a time and will be able to get them. And I mean, I went through that in college. Like, there was this campus crusade for Christ, and I would go there, and it was like you're doing worship songs, and then you're doing Bible study, and you're all in, and like it becomes to the point where you have all these friends, so you can't possibly leave now. And I got kicked out of a Bible study, actually, that was in my own home, that I I had to go to my room because I write about this a little bit. So I still haven't worked out how to make it like super funny to people other than me. But basically, like, we were doing the Bible study. I was working quite a lot during college. Like, I had to work to go to school, right? So I was working almost full time. So I hadn't really read the whole passage we were supposed to study. And I said, well, I didn't have time. I was being honest. I didn't have time. And the woman, like the leader, was like, well, you have to do this. Like, if you're not going to do this, you're not going to be part of whatever. And I said, well, I had to work. Like, and I said I needed money. It's like books. We had to buy books. And she goes, you know what I do when I need money? I pray. And I get a check from my parents every month. And I said, well, I work and I get a check. And I said, I get a check twice a month. Yeah. I go, so mine might be working better. And that was it. And so I went into my room while they finished Bible study in the living room. But I get it, right? Like, you find something, and I've struggled with being like a Christian, then an atheist, then an agnostic, and I don't know where I am right now. I'm kind of agnostic-ish. But it's interesting, I think, to go from an atheist to something else. But now you're a vicar, so I want to hear about, really, I mean, I was so thrilled the first time I met you, just because I was so enthralled that you were a vicar. I don't know if you remember. It was kind of embarrassing to me. I was like, oh, hi, I want to talk to you. Like, I was very drawn to you because I thought it was cool. And I've seen you at other gigs, and you are cool. But how did you become a vicar?
I mean, so when I was going to this church that I'm sort of slightly unfairly calling a cult, I mean, the church that I went to for about 5 years was cult-like. It wasn't technically a cult. But it had a cultic aspect. But and a bit like you said, because in a way it worked for me at the time. I mean, it was a good place. Lots of really great things happened there. And I mean, the one thing you could never say about Pentecostals is that they don't take their faith seriously. I mean, they take it very seriously, right? And it's like having discovered this, to me, reality of God. It's like, well, if this is real, then it's the most important thing there is by definition. And that remains the case 35 years later. So I suppose there was a period of about 10 years where I was doing, jobs to pay the bills, but I had no real interest in what I was doing. And my passion, my passion was God and the church and religion and stuff. That's what actually turned me on and got me out of bed in the morning, sort of thing. And then I think roundabout, as I turned 30, was now married. I met my wife at the Clergy church, and we kind of left. It was roundabout the time we got to get. Part of how and why we got together was going, look, we both think this is crazy. Let's move. And that was sort of how we ended up leaving. I was working in sales in the software business, and my boss was kind of, I was doing okay, and my boss was going, all right, we need to talk about your career path for the next 30 years. And I was kind of like, hang on, I didn't really mean to be here for as long as I've been here. The thought that I would be doing this for another year is horrifying, let alone the idea that this is my life. So my wife and I sort of went off on this sort of do-it-yourself retreat. We just went away for a weekend to a kind of spa to kind of chill out. And for me, it was a time of reflection and prayer, kind of seeking God's will for what to do with the rest of my life. And in some ways, it was partly just because I was finding what I was doing very dissatisfying, and I was working long hours and didn't really have any time for myself. And so I was almost, in the first few days on this retreat, I was almost just thinking, well, whatever I end up doing, I want to get out of the rat race. So I was almost thinking, well, maybe I'll just resign, we'll move to the country, and I'll just get a job as a postman or something, so I can just earn enough to live, but actually have some time to enjoy life. And then basically we ended up meeting some there were some people staying in the same place who were two vicars' wives on a post-Christmas holiday. And then when we got talking to them, and they just they went, look, you should be a vicar. You're clearly a natural. And again, it was just that kind of the fact that we'd gone away and prayed, and then we find ourselves sitting there with these two women going, you should be a vicar.
Yeah.
Was like a personal message. And I mean, I've just been really happy for the last 23 years. I love what I do. It's just perfectly suited to my personality type, my skills, my strengths, my values. I kind of love what I do. I mean, I'm self-diagnosed ADHD, right? But I kind of get bored very quickly. And the worst thing I could imagine would be just doing the same thing all day, every day. Whether that was in a factory or being a GP. I mean, I always just think sitting in an office, just having people come in and moaning about their back or whatever every 10 minutes would drive me crazy. Whereas as a vicar, I just get to do all sorts. I mean, and the thing is, it's a job where you kind of can just write your own job description. I mean, there's certain things you have to do, but then you can choose to focus on the things that you're good at that turn you on, as long as you've got other people to cover it. I do my Sunday services, I do weddings, I do funerals, and that, I mean, doing comedy, which I've been doing for about 10 years, has benefited my ministry so much. The average vicar in the sort of sermon slot just have sort of like this sort of 5 minutes, very earnest sort of going on about. Whereas I just basically do a tailor-made stand-up routine for that couple, and they love it. Their family and friends love it. It really works. Equally, I love doing funerals because you're in a position where you can really, really help a family when they really, really need it. You do a good funeral for a family. They love you till the day you die. You really kind of feel that you're doing some good in the world, and that's a great thing. But also, like, having been in a band, being a comic, being a sort of natural performer, show off, exhibitionist, whatever it is we are, when I go in to do assemblies in the local schools, I'm not really interested in going in and telling them the story of the Good Samaritan, because it's not really appropriate in our culture, quite frankly. Over the last few years, I have kind of gone in as Elvis, as Freddie Mercury, and as Elton John.
Yay!
And performed the songs of those artists in end of year assemblies. And the great thing about little kids is that they just still, I mean, these are still children that believe in Santa. So they're all going home going, oh, Mum, Elvis Presley came and sang at our assembly today. They think I'm the real Elvis or the real Freddie, even though those people are dead.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think I mean, you've talked about what you like about it, but I guess, like, is there anything that maybe you perceived that a vicar did before you were one that is, like, a lot different, I guess? Because, well, my mom, for example, she watches a lot of these murder mysteries about small towns in England, because I told her, like, I sent the photo when we were in when we got through in that one competition together, you and I sent her the photo and I said, oh, it's like, here's me and a vicar. And she was like, oh, cool. And she was like saying how she loves the vicars in those shows. And so I think she now has an idea of what a vicar does, but is there something that kind of surprised you about your job?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think in some ways I almost didn't really know what the job involved when I first said I wanted to do it. I mean, I suppose I had an idea of what a church leader did but at that point, more of my church experience was in this kind of Pentecostal world or the Baptist world. Maybe I'd been to an Anglican church for a little while, but I suppose I saw it more as, which is like leading services, preaching, teaching, pastoral care, which it is all those things. I mean, I think and again, we're going to get quite technical in sort of theological language, but I mean, I think there's two different ways of doing church. So, like the American system and kind of Pentecostal and Baptist churches in this country are the technical term is they're gathered churches. So they're basically a community that services itself and doesn't really necessarily connect with their local community at all. So, like, for example, if I was a Pentecostal minister in Luton, I would only take the weddings and funerals of members of that congregation. Whereas the Church of England is the established church of the land, and therefore any person who lives in the community has a legal right to have their wedding or funeral or baptism there, whether they've ever been to church before or not.
Okay.
So I'm regularly doing all those services for people that have had no contact with the church before and may not have any after. So it's a completely different role. It's just a totally different style of church and a different mentality. In a sense, I don't differentiate between, as it were, the chaplain to the whole community I live in, not just the Christians within it. Very different to my view of church before, but I've been sort of trained in that model by the Church of England and by the vicar who trained me, and then that's now how I think it should be. So all the people I've trained, I've trained in the same kind of way.
That's great. And then how did you start to do comedy?
It really was by accident that I got into it. Because, I mean, when I was first came out of rehab, and in the 80s, I was a punk. I didn't have a job. And I just got unemployment benefit. I'd never had a job, didn't want one. And then once I'd sort of been through rehab and realised that I needed to be a respectable citizen, and was then thinking about, okay, I mean, that's when I wanted to kind of get into acting. I think I'd already had that sort of failed attempt at getting into acting, which I mentioned earlier. I signed up for this improv class run by a company called Theatre Sports, which was the original improv group that did Whose Line Is It Anyway and stuff. And I was like, there were about, I don't know, 20 or 30 people doing this course, and everyone bar me and one other girl was a working comic. I was like about the only non-stand-up. And funnily enough, one of the people in that group was Eddie Izzard, who obviously now is one of the biggest comedians that.
Yeah.
So I was actually doing workshops with them before. This was before they were as famous as they are now. And I can remember at the time thinking, wow, I mean, acting, fine, singing in a band, fine, but there is no way I would ever want to get up on a stage and try and make people laugh and face the horror of them not laughing at me. So it was not something I'd ever had any desire to do at all. But I think after I got ordained and started preaching, I mean, most preachers will kind of try and stick a joke in here and there to kind of get people limbered up. So I was kind of consciously trying to do that. And I found, that I kind of quite liked the feedback of laughter. That feeling of you say something funny and people laugh. It's if you are an addict personality and all of that, it's quite a nice affirmation. So I was sort of consciously, and for more healthy motives, it also it engages people. If when you get in the pulpit, you're kind of making people laugh a bit, and they go, "Oh, this guy's great." And then they'll listen to what else you've got to say, rather than them going, "Oh, I'll just take the next 10 minutes to switch off and think about something else." So I was doing that, and then I saw this advert in our trade press, the Church Times, where it was talking. Well, it wasn't an advert; it was an article talking about a comedian that was running a workshop for priests or for preachers to learn comedy techniques to make their sermons more interesting. So I was just, well, that's got my name on it. I'm really interested in that. So I rang the guy up and said I'd like to sign up for the course. So he is a vicar's son, who is a practicing Christian and a comedian, and he runs a comedy course for anyone. He does kind of corporate stuff for public, anyone who wants to use comedy techniques in public speaking. And his vicar had said you should do one specifically for vicars, which he did. So his name is Bentley Browning, and his organisation is called Comedy Novices. And he did this new thing called Comedy for Clergy, and I was like, well, I really want to do this. He said, okay, well, you basically do the course. During the course, you'll kind of work on a routine, and at the end of it, we do a little gig in a local pub, and everyone gets up and does like a 5-minute spot. And I was going, well, look, I'm happy to do the course, but there is no way that I am going to do that. But actually, once I did the course and realised that most comedians are actually delivering a routine that they have written, rehearsed and refined, rather than just being that funny off the cuff, I was like, oh, right, okay, well, I think I could probably do that. And I thought I said I'd have a go. I actually only did his taster workshop because I think in some ways, I think I pick things up quite quickly, right? And and in terms of, sort of basic public speaking, that was already something I'd been doing for years. So I was just like, oh, right, I see. All I need to do is X and Y. So I went back to the sort of follow-up workshop, having worked on a routine which I was going to try out. And Bentley was going, oh, look, I've got BBC London here, and because they're doing a feature on Comedy for Clergy, and they want someone to get up and do their routine, but everyone's said they don't want to do it. Would you be up for that? And I was like, yeah, why not? Let's do it. And then, so long story short, that piece then ended up being on BBC London, and like a week later,
wow,
the TV show. And then that night, Bentley and I got a call from BBC One going, right, we've booked your tickets up to Media City in Manchester. You're on the red sofa with Nag and Munchetti tomorrow morning, which was timed to coincide with the gig. So, like, the day that I did my first gig, I'd been on TV before. I'd been worrying about speaking to 20 people in a pub in Islington, and instead I then had to sort of go and attempt to be funny on BBC One. And so, of course, like, loads of my mates came to that first gig, and again, it was like, I felt like a real rock star, because when I arrived at the gig as well, there was another TV crew there who were kind of filming an interview with me before going on to do the gig. So I was on a real high. Gig went well, so then that was it. I was addicted to doing comedy. I mean, if that first gig hadn't gone well, I'd have probably done it again. But
wow.
And in fact, so that was my first gig. The One show then did a follow-up piece on this. They came down to Canterbury to film another, and that was due to screen on a Thursday night a few months later. And the day it was supposed to be going out, they rang me going, would you actually be able to come into the studio tonight in addition to the... And I was going, no, I can't. I've got, like, I'm meeting a wedding couple. I'm doing a wedding tomorrow. We've got the rehearsal tonight, so I can't really make it. And they were going, oh, that's a real shame, because we've got the 4 in-betweeners in the studio who are there promoting their new film. And we thought what would be fun would be to do a kind of clerical comedy competition. So we've already got a Catholic and a Methodist, and we wanted you to be the Church of England vicar doing comedy, and the in-betweeners can judge it. So I'm a massive in-betweeners fan. So I just went, all right, I'll be there, and I'll just negotiate with the couple about changing the rehearsal time. So my third gig was live on BBC One in front of 6 million people. And I mean, crazy. It's like, you're supposed to work your way up to being on telly, whereas I started off on telly and then it basically just disappeared down into... I mean, I haven't actually done a gig since my semi-final, right? Because I'm just not really chasing... I'm just not chasing gigs anymore. I mean, I've got a few in the diary where people have booked me, but
yeah, that's super cool. I would say, and what a career high right at the start. That's amazing. And one thing I want to just see if you want to chat about. I mean, you said too, you like have this program for adult survivors of child abuse. So do you want to talk about what that is?
Yeah, no, it's very close to my heart. So it's called Heal for Life, and it began in Australia 25 years ago. So all the people who kind of run it and involved in it are survivors of some form of childhood trauma or abuse, normally abuse themselves. And I mean, again, that was part of why I sort of left the Pentecostal church that I was in many years ago. Not because of any abuse there, but that it was while attending there, after I'd been off drugs a few years and started to do a bit of therapy, that kind of the full scale of like stuff that had happened to me when I was a kid. Either that I realised that things that I'd just accepted as normal were not normal and were actually criminal abuse, but also things that I'd actually completely screened out, dissociated, sort of unthawed and made themselves apparent to me. And I was in like the worst possible environment to be dealing with that stuff, because this culture of Pentecostalism was so denial based. I'd be kind of talking about these things happened, and not just like random people in the congregation. I mean, even sort of senior leaders there were saying to me things like, well, maybe the devil's put these, maybe, are you sure these things actually happen? Maybe the devil's put this idea in your mind to kind of and then going, and anyway, even if it did happen, it's in the past. Whoever is in Christ is a new creation. Hallelujah. And you just need to forgive the people who've done this to you. And all of this crazy, toxic nonsense, which was part of why I got the hell out of that environment. So I think then I spent a long time in therapy, kind of working through stuff. And it was round about the time that one of my favorite quotes ever is Freud said that the aim of psychoanalysis is to convert neurotic misery into the everyday unhappiness that everyone has to deal with, right? And so as around about the point where I was getting thinking, I think I am now no more messed up or miserable than everybody else is. And that was about the time that I then felt this call to ordain ministry as well. So I think when I then sort of going off to train to be a vicar, it was something I was thought, well, one thing I would like to do in my ministry is try and provide help for people who are trying to come to terms with child abuse, childhood trauma. I know what I wanted and needed and didn't get, so I would love to be able to try and provide that for other people, but I had no idea how I would ever do that. I just kind of left that on the wish list. And then bizarrely, when I moved to the place I now live, the people that set this thing up in Australia, or the family of the people who set this thing up in Australia, lived here, and they were one of the first couples I got to know when I moved here, and they were telling me about the work and asking if I would support it as vicar, not even knowing my kind of history. It really felt like it was handed to me on a plate. So I kind of went out to Australia to sort of do the course for myself, and it was transformative for me. And then the following year we sort of set it up here. So what we actually do is we run like these sort of residentials like 2 or 3 times a year, as it's like a 5-day program, which is designed to just give people a kind of super safe environment where they've got the time and the space to actually kind of get into stuff much more than they could in a sort of standard 50-minute therapy session. And it's really powerful. And interestingly, that when it was set up in Australia, it was gently Christian. So it was slightly more Christian than the 12-step groups we were talking about earlier. So it would sort of say, look, those of us who set this up are Christians, and we believe that having a relationship with God or a higher power, as you understand that, will be beneficial in your recovery or your healing journey. And so we have a little session each day, which just gives you a bit of time and space to explore that. But, we're not heavy about it. And that's how it was in Australia, and it seemed to work there. But as soon as we started trying to run it here in exactly the same way, the minute we said anything about God, people would just get really triggered and angry and go, well, no, I didn't come here to be... And like my colleagues were sort of going, oh, what's going on? No one ever did this in Australia. And it's like, well, yeah, that's because they're Australian, isn't it? The national motto of Australia, as you may know, is she'll be right, mate. Whatever. They're the most laid back people. And the British are sort of much more uptight and touchy. So ironically, in a sort of Zen move, the vicar, said, look, we need to make this program completely non-religious because we're just putting barriers. The actual work we do is just therapeutic. It makes no more difference what you do or don't believe about God than whether you voted Remain or Leave. It's completely irrelevant. So it's really, since at least 2014, it's operated as an entirely secular therapeutic program.
Cool. That's awesome work that you're doing.
I recently had my first academic article published on this subject. I did a kind of reflection on ministry and was saying that, so effectively I have these three strings to my core thing is being a vicar. And then I do the comedy on the one hand, the therapy on the other. The comedy and therapy could in one sense seem like very different, although of course comedy is a form of therapy and whatever, but actually both of them flow quite naturally out of my core role. I mean, so comedy is just like preaching with more jokes, and obviously the therapy is an overflow of pastoral work. So I kind of feel that I've ended up where I have these three things that I do that to the naked eye might seem, how do they fit together? But they all fit together really well. And I think each one makes me better at the other. So it's this kind of it's a positive feedback loop. And I think it also keeps me sane as well. And this was like the main focus of the article I wrote, because there's actually a very high rate of burnout and breakdown among clergy. I mean, huge. So there was a sort of thing recently, I think like at least a third of clergy in the Church of England are on antidepressants because the job's so demanding. Lots of my colleagues have sort of had periods of time off work due to mental health issues directly caused by just being in the kind of stuff they're having to deal with in the parish. And sometimes I've had to deal with all the same stuff, but I have these two ways of kind of, getting outside that and having more positive experiences. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that is a good way to like kind of sum it up too, because they do seem unrelated, but then you do see how the things feed. I mean, it's like cross-functional skills in a way in my world, so.
Yeah, 100%.
One thing, Ravi, that I like to ask everybody, so I do these fun 5 questions that are my last questions for everyone, but before that I like to just ask, do you have any advice or mantra that you'd like to share with people?
I just think for me, my fundamental value is honesty with self and others, which probably is, again, almost word for word out of kind of, AA 12 step. But I mean, that, for me, that is what kind of life and therapy and religion at its best are all about. I mean, just to know yourself, to be the best human being that you can, which involves your blind spots, your areas for growth are, which involve rigorous honesty with yourself, with other, I mean, that's really what motivates me and what I would want to inculcate.
It's a good way to be. It's easier to keep track of everything when you're honest with
Yeah,
everyone.
yeah.
You know. Okay, so the last set of questions are the fun 5. The first question: what's the oldest T-shirt you have and still wear?
Well, if the words "and still wear," so I had one of my favorite when I was in my band, which was called God's Government, and this was
Nice.
so this was after I'd found God, but before I was technically a Christian. But I don't know if you know the clothing company Boy, who were on the King's Road. I mean, they were associated with the Sex Pistols, and it was all part of that sort of punk, came out of the punk scene of the 70s, which was, and there was a lot of Boy stuff around in the kind of 80s. And it was just a black T-shirt with God Squad in massive letters in white. With the Boy logo, and I just loved that T-shirt. And it back in the day when I was kind of thin and pretty, and it was the 80s. I had all my T-shirts had that was the kind of look, right? You know, I would, you would not want to see me in a sleeveless T-shirt. But I loved this T-shirt so much that and then I think my ex-girlfriend cut the collar off it, not in some post breakup rage, but just because I'd lent it to her, and for some reason she decided it would look better with the collar off, which it didn't. So it's like this, but it's this sort of, I just couldn't bear to throw it away, so I've still got it in a drawer. And I mean, if I try and put it on, it kind of comes up to about there on me. It's like. But so I can, and I have vaguely thought about trying to get a mate of mine who's a tailor to kind of sew the core patch of it onto another black T-shirt. In fact, I am going to do that. That's something I'm going to do because I need to. Yeah. Other than a couple of T-shirts by the clothing company Ring Spun, I don't know if you know them. They used to do these Ring Spun All Stars where they would have. They're kind of done like they're really good quality T-shirts modeled on a kind of American baseball shirt, and they just have pictures of like either actors or rock stars or other cultural icons on. And I've got one which has got Travis Bickle on the front, and one that's got again De Niro. It's like from Goodfellas. It's De Niro and Ray Liotta and Joe Pesci, all and Blink. I know both those T-shirts I got, I don't know, 25 years ago, but nice. They just still look brand new because they're
awesome. Those sound cool, and De Niro's a legend for sure. So the next one, if every day was really Groundhog's Day, like it was basically, I started this podcast during lockdown, so it was really Groundhog's Day. Then we know if you were living in Groundhog's Day, it would drive you nuts. You would not want that routine. But what song would you have your alarm set to play every morning?
The first song occurred to me, I Can See Clearly Now by Jimmy Cliff. It's not actually originally by him. I can't remember who did it originally, but his version of it I prefer. And it's just a really... Do you know the song? I can see clearly now.
Yeah.
The rain. Yeah. It's a very warm, fuzzy song. It's just, if I was going to have to listen to something every day, that feels like something that would be a good thing to wake up to.
Nice. Yeah, it's a pretty song, and like you could just let it play for as long as you want it to. Yeah. Cool. And then, a positive thing to wake up to in the morning. I think that's one thing. Like I was reading about just how like what you can do to start to like work on anxiety, and one thing was like stop picking up your phone first thing in the morning, or so like hearing that song would be way better than reading the New York Times in the morning.
Right.
All right, the next one, coffee or tea or neither?
Coffee, no question. Coffee.
Same. And then can you think of a time that you like laughed so hard you cried, or just something that cracks you up when you think of it? Just what gets you?
There's a sort of serious aspect to this, but at one point where some stuff around my own abuse was coming out, and I was in a really dark, a place so dark I could hardly see straight. And as my kind of attempt to, I mean, I'm a big movie buff anyway, and I go to the cinema a lot, but so I went to see the film You Don't Mess with the Zohan with Adam Sandler, who is one of my guilty pleasures in life. Like, so a lot of my more sophisticated, loving friends just do not understand, you know, why I like Adam Sandler, but I love Adam Sandler, and I don't think I have ever laughed so much as when I watched You Don't Mess with the Zohan. And in some ways, it wasn't necessarily because the film was so funny. It was because I just needed some kind of release so much. But, you know, that film absolutely, you know, delivered it. And I'm eternally grateful to Adam Sandler for that. And again, it slightly annoys me when people are down on him because, you know, like he's so, I mean, a lot of people like his stuff, you know? He's a very, 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 very talented comedian. Yeah, yeah. Right. Yeah. So I did think about this question. I mean, obviously, as a vicar, you know, you'd expect me to say Jesus, but I had a bit the same issue with. We did a series in kind of informal service that we have at my church a few years back, where the series was people who inspire you, and each week a different person kind of did it. I mean, I do more than I did, like two, where everyone else did one. I'm the vicar. Um, and in some ways, I suppose, you know, I've still got this punk rock mentality of like not wanting to do the same thing as everyone else does, and I want to be a bit different. So the two that I did of people who inspire me, one was my dog, right? And but with a genuine point in that, in terms of like mindfulness, being in the enjoying what's actually going on around you rather than projecting or worrying, and not just doing what you want rather than worrying about what you think you should do or what other people think. I mean, my dog is totally inspirational in that, as I'm sure, you know, as animals in general are. So that's her.
Yeah.
My dog, who is actually sitting next to me, fast asleep as we speak. And the other, you know, when I did the next one, the other one was me, myself, and not in a kind of no, but not in a narcissistic or egotistical way, but actually speaking as a survivor of, you know, extreme abuse, of like the fact that I have survived all the things that have me in my life, and ended up being able to turn them into positive things. So I'm, you know, now able to help other people. I'm really proud of myself for doing that. I mean, obviously, I I'm not. I don't. I'm very opposite of a self-made man, because my ability to do that came first of all from I was completely spiritually bankrupt when I turned to God. So everything I have has been given to me. I've had a lot of help from a lot of people, whether that's in 12-step groups or the church or, you know, elsewhere, my wife, you know, whatever. But I think nonetheless, I kind of want to acknowledge the kind of brave survivor in me, and in every other survivor, in all the people who come and do the kind of program that I run, because they're all survivors. And we have this song that we play, which is called "My Brave Heart," which was written by the survivor of abuse called Karen Taylor Good, which is just honouring the indomitable human spirit that is able to transcend any amount of horror and kind of come out fighting, smiling, still not be beaten down, not be corrupted, still be, yeah. So that's my answer. Who inspires me? Human being.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I think it's good. Well, Ravi, it's been awesome to have you here. So one thing I want to ask is like, where do you want people to look you up? Do you want people, just where can they find you if they want to just learn more?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have an Instagram account which is Ravi Holy, but because I'm old, I'm much more a creature of Facebook than Instagram. So I don't really put much on Instagram, but on Facebook or just Google me, Ravi Holy. Hopefully, I will be gigging. I kind of tend to advertise gigs on my sort of Facebook page. So, yeah. And my church in we're open Sundays. So if people want to come along, they'd be very welcome. Or if people have been touched by the concept of the Heal for Life weeks, then, that's something else. They can just Google me or Heal for Life and find out about that.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for being on More Than Work, Ravi. It was really great to talk to you.
Oh, thank you for having me. Great to talk to you.
Thanks for listening. You can learn more about the guest and what was talked about in the show notes. Joe Maffia created the music you're listening to. You can find him on Spotify at Joe, Maffia. Rob Metke does all the design, for which I am so grateful. You can find him online by searching Rob, Metke. Please leave a review if you like the show, and get in touch if you have feedback or guest ideas. The pod is on all the social channels at More Than Work Pod or at Rabiah Comedy on TikTok. While being kind to others, don't forget to be kind to yourself.